All right, let's just dive right into one of the most fascinating corporate evolution stories in Silicon Valley history. Welcome to this explainer on the OpenAI saga. You know, the company that brought us ChatGPT and basically rewired our relationship with technology overnight. But what we're really digging into today isn't just their code, it's their corporate soul. We're looking at this massive paradox at the very heart of the company, this intense decade-long collision between their founding mission to protect humanity and the absolute gravitational pull of the free market. And why should you care? Well, because this is the company actively building the infrastructure of our future economy.
$300 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. That represents OpenAI's post-money valuation as of April 2025, right after a massive $40 billion funding round led by SoftBank. It is literally the largest private technology deal in recorded history. To put that into perspective, by mid-2025, they were pulling in an annualized revenue of $12 billion with 20 million paid subscribers. But here's the crazy part. This massive tech empire started with a completely different identity. Actually, it started with a promise that actively shunned this exact kind of wealth.
This quote, straight from their 2016 tax filings, perfectly sets up our central paradox. When a group of AI luminaries had dinner in San Francisco in 2015, they wanted to pool their resources and build artificial general intelligence, or AGI, basically an AI that matches or beats human intelligence. And they wanted to build it in the open, so no single corporation could control it. The absolutely crucial phrase here is unconstrained by a need to generate financial return. They were explicitly built as a 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit charity. The whole idea was that without a profit motive, they wouldn't have any conflicting interests when dealing with tech that could potentially threaten humanity itself.
So here's how we're going to untangle this messy 10-year history. We'll look at the altruistic beginning, the capped profit pivot, the boardroom coup, the safety exodus, and finally, the $300 billion empire.
Part 1. The altruistic beginning, where a lofty promise meets reality.
Back in December 2015, an incredible roster of talent, including folks like Ilya Sutskever and Greg Brockman, got together to change the world. But a lofty vision requires cold, hard cash, right? Backers like Elon Musk, Sam Altman, and others pledged a combined $1 billion. But fast forward to 2019, and tax disclosures showed only about $130 million had actually hit the bank. In the world of frontier AI, where you're up against heavyweights like Google's DeepMind, that is just a drop in the bucket. Just to give you an idea, in 2017 alone, OpenAI spent nearly $8 million on cloud compute, while DeepMind was spending over $400 million on their total expenses. OpenAI realized pretty quickly they were losing the resource war.
Now, to really understand the structural crisis they hit, we have to talk about tax law for a second. Strict laws dictate that nonprofits cannot substantially further private commercial interests. Under Supreme Court precedent, like the Better Business Bureau case, having a 501c3 status means your day-to-day operations have to align exclusively with your charitable purpose. You can't let your activities just become an end in themselves to drive profitability. So OpenAI was completely trapped. They desperately needed billions in venture capital to buy computing power, but their strict nonprofit status meant they legally could not offer those investors a return on their money.
Which brings us to part 2, the capped profit pivot and rewiring the foundation.
Because they needed immense capital to train models like GPT-2, the leadership decided in 2019 to radically restructure. And they pulled off some truly Olympic-level corporate legal gymnastics. They created this incredibly tangled web trying to let a nonprofit board govern a for-profit subsidiary. At the very top, the nonprofit board of directors kept ultimate control. But below them, they spun out a for-profit entity called OpenAI LP. This is the move that allowed them to take in massive investments, most notably a $1 billion and eventually a $13 billion investment from Microsoft. Microsoft became a minority owner and provided the exclusive Azure cloud infrastructure that OpenAI desperately needed to survive.
They called this novel setup a capped profit entity. Basically, investors were told they could get up to 100 times their investment back, but anything beyond that would flow straight back to the nonprofit to benefit the public. Sam Altman even stepped down from Y Combinator to become the CEO of this new entity. They were really trying to have their cake and eat it too, right? Accessing the bottomless pockets of Wall Street and Microsoft while simultaneously telling the world that their primary legal duty was still purely to humanity's safety. But right around the time of this pivot and that massive Microsoft cash injection, they quietly scrubbed the phrase "openly share our plans and capabilities" from their 2018 tax filings. It was a massive signal that they were shifting toward proprietary tech. The whole original promise was to build in the open, but as models like GPT-2 and GPT-3 came out, the open in OpenAI started to disappear. They cited safety concerns, arguing that releasing powerful language models could cause massive disinformation. But the practical reality? The technology became a massive competitive moat. By 2020, GPT-3 was released exclusively through a paid API, basically acting as a digital toll booth for other software, and it became heavily integrated into Microsoft's suite.
Part 3. The boardroom coup. The moment the structure fractures.
When ChatGPT dropped in late 2022, it shattered records, hitting 100 million users in just 2 months. Suddenly, that theoretical tension between safety and profit, it turned into an explosive reality, and the stakes went global. In just 5 chaotic days in November 2023, the nonprofit board's legal authority completely collapsed. On November 17, the board actually exercised their theoretical power and fired CEO Sam Altman, claiming he wasn't consistently candid with them. It was the ultimate stress test of that 2019 structure. Could a safety-focused nonprofit board actually rein in a booming, multi-billion-dollar commercial juggernaut? Well, the answer was a resounding no. Investors like Microsoft were furious. 738 employees, literally 95% of the company, threatened to quit and just follow Altman over to Microsoft. Within 96 hours, the board surrendered. Altman came back, the board members who ousted him were replaced, and the for-profit machine won.
Part 4. The Safety Exodus. A Splintered Vision.
Following that coup, deep ideological rifts over the speed of AI development caused a massive brain drain. The original founding team just shattered. People who were brought in specifically to ensure safety felt completely sidelined. Elon Musk had already left the board way back in 2018 over conflicts and eventually founded xAI. But the 2024 departures are super telling. Chief scientist Ilya Sutskever, the technical genius behind their biggest breakthroughs, left to form Safe Superintelligence, a lab explicitly promising zero products and a pure focus on safety. Jan Leek, the head of the superalignment team, resigned publicly and straight up said safety culture had taken a back seat to shiny products. By mid-2024, only 4 of the original 11 founders were still there.
Now, impartially reporting the facts here, this hyper shift to commercialization triggered intense pushback. Elon Musk actually slapped them with a federal lawsuit, arguing the for-profit pivot fundamentally violated their founding agreement and charitable trust status. Meanwhile, you had all these internal leaks about staff warnings over a powerful new algorithm called Q-Star, which was reportedly a massive leap in AI reasoning that escalated internal safety fears. And in the wake of all that boardroom drama, Microsoft managed to secure a non-voting observer seat on the board. The collaborative, open-source dream of 2015 had officially transitioned into a secretive, high-stakes corporate battleground.
And finally, Part 5. The $300 billion empire. The final transformation.
All of these crazy internal battles culminated in a definitive resolution by October 2025, finally ending that awkward hybrid era. And the contrast today is just stark. You have former chief scientist Ilya Sutskever's strictly safety-focused new venture SSI operating at a $32 billion valuation, explicitly refusing to release consumer products so they aren't distracted. On the other hand, the modern OpenAI is partnering up with Oracle and SoftBank on Project Stargate. We're talking about a $500 billion initiative to build massive AI infrastructure across the United States. OpenAI isn't just a research lab anymore, they are the cornerstone of a global commercial infrastructure project.
By 2025, the transformation was complete. To clear the way for SoftBank's historic $40 billion investment, OpenAI shed the complex capped profit model and officially restructured into a public benefit corporation. So they are now a traditional for-profit entity, legally allowed to balance societal good right alongside shareholder returns. And the original nonprofit? It still exists, but now it acts as a foundation holding roughly $130 billion in equity in the new for-profit company, making it one of the wealthiest philanthropic organizations on the planet. Ultimately, the entire journey of OpenAI leaves us with this final, profound question regarding the future of the technology that is absolutely going to define our century. They started with a core belief that the only way to build safe AI was to remove the profit motive entirely. Fast forward 10 years, they are the most valuable private tech company in history, deeply integrated with the largest corporations on Earth. Have they simply adapted to the harsh economic realities of frontier science? Or did the market inevitably swallow the mission? As we push closer and closer to artificial general intelligence, well, that's a question we all have a very vested interest in answering. Thanks for hanging out for this explainer, and keep questioning what you see on the horizon.